welcome to my channel. Today I am working on 2 mixed media tags for my journal. I'm just cutting down this piece of scrap cardstock into a tag size. I didn't have a size in mind, so I would just use the size of the card. And I'm going to be using some inks and some distress sprays to color and some stamping. So I was able to finally drag out some of my stencils and stamps from my mixed media days. So first I'm going to apply archival ink because I want it to stay. When I use the distress oxides and you get the distress oxides wet, it kind of lifts the ink up and it gives it this blotchy effect. That's really cool. But I didn't want it to do that to the brown. I wanted the brown to stay put, so that's why I'm using the archival ink. And the trick when you're doing stencils to get them to look halfway decent is you don't want to do the whole stencil at once. You want to just do bits and pieces of it. And it just looks better that way. I'm not sure the correct terminology. It looks way more better this way than if you just use the whole thing and it looks square. I've done that in the beginning and it never looked right. So here I'm using some distress spray and I'm just dabbing the card into it. I didn't want to cover the whole card. I wanted to leave a lot of space this time. Well, blank space. And you can do it either way you want. That was just what I had in my mind. I didn't want the background to overpower. I wanted to be the butterfly stamp to be the focal image. So that's why I left a lot of blank area this time. And I'm going in with the green because the digital kit I'm using is Artie Maze's Butterflies in Blue. And so it's got greens and blues. And so that's why I chose those 2 colors. So I'm just dipping the card in different areas that I think it needs some color. I wanted to get some of that green on the edge. And then I'm going to add some water. And it's been so long since I've done this technique. I first sprayed on there, but the mist is too fine. So then I remember to spray the water on my fingers and then flick it, and it creates, I guess, a bigger drop of water. And then I try to wait a little bit. I should have waited longer. It would have picked up more ink and made nicer blotches, but it still worked. So I'm both drying and dabbing away and seeing if it needs any more water and seeing how I like it. I'm trying to go through and picture what I need in my head as I'm drawing it. Now this butterfly stamp on the left is from Tim Holtz. It's the prettiest butterfly I have. I love it. And I'm going to also look for a little sentiment. And I don't have a whole lot like I thought I would. I didn't want to buy, sentiments for holidays because then that kind of limits. So this one probably says something mushy like memories and moments or something, But it'll work. And I'm going to use archival ink because I want it to stay. Because I'm not going to do any watercolor spraying on it. And you'll notice that I don't put the whole butterfly on the tag. That's one of the things that I learned from all the videos that I used to watch, is it just kind of, when you offset it, it just gives it a different feel. And I started, stamping flowers or leaves or, any of the insects, half on and half off the page. Sometimes, depending on the size of the page, you can put the full thing, but it gives it a little something when you do it on the side. So now this was a fun technique. I found it on Pinterest under Tim Holtz tutorials. And I just had this funky little stencil And I'm going to do like the rainbow of colors, like an inch or so of each. And I'm going to let them touch and go over each other because these distress oxides, they blend in well to each other. And when I take the stencil off, it gives it a really cool, I guess kind of a tie-dye look for the background. If you need to know any of these colors, just go ahead and comment below. I'll be happy to look them up for you. I generally don't mention everything where I'll get them from or the colors, because your color theme is probably going to be different than my color theme. So that's why I just try to focus on the techniques of what you can do with what you have and what colors you need versus, you need to use the same things I have if you want the same look, because what you have will work fine. I learned that the hard way. I was always comparing my work to what I saw, and it's like, no, you just have to learn the techniques and use the colors and the patterns you have, and it'll still be pretty. So here's going to be the reveal. Da, 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 da. Oh, come on. There we go. So you could have used any other stencil. It could have been flowers or anything, but as long as you do the rainbow effect of different color after color, it'll be kind of cool. So I'm just cleaning everything with a wet wipe. And let me see. I'm going to do the same effect. And usually only the oxides are supposed to lift up, but those two little containers are inks, and I noticed they lifted up, especially that darker, I don't even want to try to say which one it was. Rustic Hinge, I think. Yeah, I think that was Rustic Hinge. I didn't even realize I had that. I got it on sale, and I rarely use the little ones. So I'm glad I looked through everything to see what I had. And I'll bring a little bit more color to the pages because I think the kit is mostly like the greens and the blues. So I always think I have to just stick to those colors, but you don't. I want to add a little pop of color here and there. Now on the bottom there, the stencil didn't cover it, so I was going to use some lace to cover it. But after I inked it up, I distressed it with the vintage photo, and after I sewed around it, it kind of covered up that blank spot, so I didn't need to add the lace to it. And I can always do it if I want to, but that's just how things change. As you're working through something, you're like, oh, okay. Once you add everything else to it, it didn't need the lace. And that also makes it easier to stick in a pocket without all that extra bulk. So I'm using this coffee's brown, right? But it's coffee color archival ink. I didn't want it too bold. I want it to sit in the background because the main image is going to be the butterflies. And I'm going to do the butterflies in black. That way they stand out, and you will definitely know that that is the focal image. So it took me a second to find. I knew I had these. It's been so long since I used them. And I'm going to use the archival ink. I also just happen to like this archival ink. I never have a problem with it. And it dries really fast and it stays there. Some of the other inks that I have stay wet too long and start to smear. So I love the archival ink. And I'm pressing really good because since it's the focal image, I wanted to get a good image. Although I also learned that if it's not that great, it still gives it that aged look. You don't always need to be perfect. So don't stress when you stamp something. Unless like on cards. When I was doing the cards, yeah, you wanted the embossing to be perfect and everything. And that's why I love the journaling, because it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. Even when you stamp the images or when you sew around something, the lines don't have to be straight. Sometimes if I'm going too fast, it goes off the card. And that just adds to, the look. And I love it. And so this is about over. I do go ahead and remember this time to glue the paper on before I was going to go ahead and glue the lace on it first. Then I remembered it'd probably be easier if everything was flat. And then I'm always scared that the paper will come off when I use the glue stick, so I went ahead and stitched around this one. And I might still stitch around the other one, even though I already put the trim on, and the eyelet on. Well, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to stitch around it, and I found some brownish eyelash trim. And so these are pretty simple. For those of you who haven't tried a mixed media, there are a gazillion videos out there, and it's just another way to add color to your junk journals. And so I hope you give it a try, and I hope you enjoy crafting, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.